7 years. The very things that I felt like were handicaps turned out really to be the necessary character building that it would take.
A lot of times, whether it's on social media, Instagram, Facebook, you see all of these successful entrepreneurs and they're just kind of yelling at you hey, stop being broke and be rich. Yeah. And all the entrepreneurs that I work with, whether it's you, whether it's the lawyers, whether it's doctors, none of them come across that way. They actually have some actual wisdom to give to you, and they're not coming across boastful or flamboyant and things like that. So I just wanted to sit down and have a conversation with you guys for you to share with others what I've been able to get over the last couple of years. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of what we're going over. So if you can, in 90 seconds, tell me from 2005 when you and your wife started this to where you guys are now 13 years later, how did this come about here at DFH?
Well, I think the idea of entrepreneurship is just something that you sort of have to have a measure of that DNA makeup in you to get started, to do whatever it is, just because it's going to be hard and you're going to fail, and so there's got to be enough drive to do it. We picked up a couple of trucks, and I remember getting our first one was a real big deal. Through our efforts, we landed one account with Walmart, and that really helped set the tone. We learned a lot from that, how to do RFPs and things. Then as our need grew, we had our first employee and got another account, and it wasn't a fast thing. It wasn't overnight. Just having that dedication, up early, up late, working, and keeping a realistic expectation that it wasn't all going to be money driven. We were proud to be able to say that we had our own business. And I didn't care whether I was doing it in the garage. Yeah. It was still better than my friends going and punching the clock, from 8 to 5. So.
For sure. All right, so you guys started this business about 10 to 15 years ago. What would you tell yourself, if your present self can go back and talk to yourself when you guys were starting this in 2005, what would you tell yourself?
You don't know anything.
you know nothing.
I think it was when we started understanding that partnerships and staying in your lane and really working with your strengths, that was when we started to get some traction. We partnered with the other owners of DFH, and so I could focus on the things that I was naturally good at and the things that I excelled in. We have a different division that does our operations for the assets, another one that does accounting, and so really learning to play well with others early on is something that I would highly recommend. I would be telling myself that to get into that earlier, because I think for a long time it was so important that our name was on the door and titles, but I think that collaborative effort made a big difference in our success.
I know you're big on sweat equity, a cool way to say, hey, do some things for free. So what's your thought process behind knowing when sweat equity is the right way to go?
I feel like when your sweat equity can have a deeper impact, to me, that's when I usually go all in with that. I think that there's a difference between somebody wanting your services for free and you wanting to showcase your skills and abilities to somebody.
Gotcha.
So I typically would focus it on where I want to be, what I would love to do. We used to go to the same shipper and tell them that the next time that you have a problem shipping, let us know, we'll do it for free. Okay. Not because we just were somebody called us and wanted to move something from point A to point B, but I just wanted him to know that it meant enough to me to show him what we could do, that we would invest in the driver, we'd invest in the gas, so that they could have that experience working with our company.
So you're betting on yourself pretty much.
That's right. That's exactly what you're doing.
What I can give in hopes of getting that return on that investment.
And to that point, a lot of people, when they put in sweat equity, they don't put in the same effort as they do when they're getting paid. And it's crazy because it's the exact opposite. If I'm not getting paid, then I want you to see the very best that I have to offer. You're going to get my undivided attention. You're going to get the highest level of service or product that I can give you, because the only thing I'm getting out of it is your impression.
So give me 3 practical tips that a young person can start tomorrow to try to gain professional success. 3 practical tips.
Saving is a big part of it from business, because you're going to have your ups and downs. Okay. And I don't think you have to have a big 401k type deal, but taking a measure of what you make, even when it's a little, and putting it to the side. That was something that we picked up early on, and over time it allowed us to get more assets, to expand what we needed to. and give us cushions when things didn't go our way. So I think that getting your finances disciplined to put some aside early on is important, and I'd push that to anybody. The second thing I would say is protecting your relationships. You know, early on for us, it was about everyone that we wanted to meet was someone that we felt we could get business from, and not as much somebody that we could learn from or someone that could open up a door for us. So from a relational standpoint, I really feel like early on in our business that we probably overlooked a lot of relationships that would have been beneficial, either to our personal growth, our business, experiences. But because there wasn't a monetary exchange, we didn't put the time or spend the effort, to make that. So I would encourage young people to understand the importance of relationships early on, because a lot of times the gatekeepers can do more for you than someone who writes you a check.
Yeah. You do have a record, right? And so a lot of people think that's the end of the road, because it's hard to get a job, it's hard to get an apartment. So
That's so funny you say that, man. Denise and I had the hardest time when we got married because of that. Anywhere where she wanted to live, they would run a background and they would see that I had a record, and I was young. I was 17.
Wow.
And so at the time, I don't think the magnitude of how that was going to affect my life really kicked in until I was an adult and I was trying to do things like get a job and get an apartment, and it really started to feel that way. And I mean, I was guilty of it. The system, the man's keeping me, all these things. Like, I don't have a chance. I'm gonna be stocking shelves at Walmart for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But it was almost the idea of hopelessness in the system that really propelled me to want to try to do something. I'm almost like, if I don't do it for myself, no one's going to give me the opportunity that I want because of my record. And I don't want this moment in time to define me for the rest of my life. And I tell people that I was on probation for 7 years.
Wow.
Where I was taking UAs 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I had to have a full-time job to not violate my probation. So I had to work somewhere where they would allow me to leave 3 times a week, and I'm already had a record being there. But what it did was it really taught me how to take my game to the next level. Like, the job that I had to be better than everybody to have the favor to say, look, I need to leave on Mondays and on Wednesdays and on Fridays. And if you let me do it, I'll come in early, I'll stay late. Yeah. And so it was like training for what it takes to be a business owner. The very things that I felt like were the handicaps for me turned out really to be the necessary, like, character building, that it would take.
Why was it important for you to be a minority entrepreneur? I know you have your kids, and they're already talking about they're going to take over the business. What was that? How was that ownership important to you?
There was a measure of a desire to create something different, than we had growing up. My parents did a great job of always giving us whatever we needed. But we came from a very modest family. Neither one of my parents went to college, and so trying to intentionally make a difference, I knew that as an entrepreneur that we could sort of take away the boundaries or the limitations for what you could do, and knowing that it is challenging in itself to be in the workplace as a minority, that this would allow us to let our efforts and our talents and our skills, take us to however far we wanted to go. And I think that there's a measure of pride for your culture. There's a desire to want more for your family. Just knowing that if you don't intentionally do it, that no one's gonna hand it to you.